listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. Congressman Zack Nunn of Iowa, and he's with us right now. He's a 20-year Air Force intelligence officer, colonel in the Air Force Reserves, former White House director of cybersecurity at the National Security Council. He flew recon missions over China and Russia. He's the national security threat landscape that President Trump inherits and how congressional Republicans are preparing to work with him and make America safe again. He is working on it. Congressman Zack Nunn, how are you?
Well, hey, Martha, thanks so much for having me on, and you make me sound way better than my wife would ever give me credit for. So I'm thrilled to be with you this morning.
Thank you for your service. You know, I went to the 100th birthday on Sunday of Alan Kinder, who's an Army veteran who was at D-Day, and he is hoping he stays healthy enough to be able to go to the remembrance of the 80 years of the Battle of the Bulge, because he was at the Battle of the Bulge too. So my dad was a POW in World War II. So, hey, I appreciate your service. Thank you.
Well, Martha, a salute, and you're absolutely right. This 80th anniversary this week with Auschwitz, just a salute to all who served. My grandfather also wounded at Battle of the Bulge, survived the night. To your father, who was a POW, and if I understand correctly, was able to escape and actually made just a heroic effort on that front.
Yes.
What an incredible generation, and you're right, to honor these guys for another year, and just an incredible legacy of America leading the way for a better world. It's a thrilling part to be part of this heritage.
Well, and I went to the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Montreal, which was the last battle my father fought before he and 3 other guys were captured and then later escaped. And what was so interesting about that is, first of all, how much the two towns, Montreal and Malafrataz, loved us. I mean, they had little children singing the national anthem. They loved us. They loved us and everything about us. But I found out so many things that my dad never talked to me about while he was alive about the battle. That, I mean, they had 150 Americans and 3,000 Nazis. And they won this battle. And, it's mind-blowing. And it was American ingenuity, because a guy named Daniel Lee, who got the Medal of Honor, he went around and destroyed their fuel and their munitions. And so then they actually were able to pick off their commander, and then the guys scattered and gave up, and we were able to win the battle. But it was American ingenuity. But I think if they had known there were 3,000 Nazis, they might have felt a little differently about it. But
a little more intimidated, right? Well, Martha, I look at my grandfather's military records, and from the moment he entered service to the moment he ended up at the Battle of the Bulge, I mean, we're talking weeks here, not months. This is how quickly these young farm kids from the Midwest ended up on the front lines. And my grandfather was an infantry scout. New guy draws the short straw and went out into a cloud bank of melting snow and couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead of him. Got hit by a German machine gun nest and spent the night in a creek bed. And thank God for that. The cold water alone is probably what saved his life, so he didn't bleed out. But, he wouldn't tell any of these stories when I was growing up, but come to find out, they took on a German Panzer early on.
Yeah.
They raided, supply depots. So these young men and the women who went there, my grandfather was treated by a nurse, just truly heroic. And I wish we could do a better job of capturing just the spirit of what America does for good in the world with that generation, because there's a lot of it that I saw also in Afghanistan and Iraq, young men and women doing everything they could for the betterment of the country. Truly impressive.
Congressman Zack Nunn's with us right now. And before we get to the national security stuff, we had a question that came in from a listener about a policy issue in Congress. So I figured since I got you, I'll ask you about it. And if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know. Susan said during the campaign, there was some talk that President Trump wanted to stop taxing Social Security income for seniors. Have you heard or seen anything about this?
Susan, great question. I think it's important for all the listeners to know. The president's made a strong commitment, as have I in Congress, no cuts to Social Security or Medicaid. Look, the reality is Americans have paid into this. They have earned it, and they deserve to be able to get it in their retirement years. And I think it's really important that despite all the fake news that's been out here that Republicans are going to slash and burn Social Security, the reality is we have a responsibility to make sure that that greatest generation we were just talking about and the generation that has come after it are able to capitalize on what they paid into. And so the best way to be able to afford that is through two things. One, grow the economy. Here in my home state, I cut taxes 3 times when we saw the economy take off. That's how you make sure that our entitlements for our greatest generation are provided. And two, cut the fraud, waste, and abuse in here. We've got billions of dollars going out the door that should be going to seniors that are being poached by all sorts of people who are running nefarious schemes, states who aren't following the law, and even illegals who've been able to come in here and siphon money off this. So let's keep the money for the people who need it. Susan, I'm glad you asked that question. Proud to tell you the answer.
And do you think that they will get rid of the income tax on Social Security benefits?
You know, we have made that argument multiple times. That's the best way for us to be able to make sure that, you know, seniors in particular have the money they need in their pocket. There's no point. You've already paid money your entire career. Paying taxes on the back end just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
I saw that they're trying to get it done, but I haven't seen a specific bill yet. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know if that will be part of the reconciliation tax package. I think that will probably be at this point, I'm seeing it as a more comprehensive bill coming out of the House with the president's support.
Thank you. I know that was a little bit different than what we were talking about, but I figured since we had you here, we would get the answer. Let's talk a little bit about national security, because I always said I never worried about Joe Biden related to domestic policy because we can work our way out of that, even though he makes he made a lot of mistakes. What I worried about was the national security front. So give us some overview about where we are right now and what the Congress is working on to try to shore that up.
Well, first I want to give compliments to some of our strongest allies like Israel, who kept Iran at bay, took out their entire air defense systems with U.S. supplied munitions, and made sure that we were able to protect as many of our American hostages as possible. I give huge credit to President Trump that when he came on the scene with one tweet, he got more done than what Biden did in 1 year in getting those hostages released. So the reality is there's a new cop in town, and that comes right from the White House with Donald J. Trump. We need to focus on the real threat, though, and this is one that I've been very concerned about for a while. I've served on the China Commission in Congress, is what the CCP is doing to undermine U.S. confidence. We've seen this in a number of ways. The number of deep-level cyber intrusions that they have done, it's called a Volt Typhoon series, but Salt Typhoon, Silk Typhoon, these are all fancy names for cyber attacks coming out of China, orchestrated by the Ministry of State, their version of their intelligence apparatus. And what they're doing is they're stealing our best technology, our best skills. They're undermining what we have. Initially, they were going after leaders like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, as well as Kamala Harris. It was a broad blanket attack. But now they've gone after individual citizens. They've attacked our 10 largest telecommunications facility. And they're also orchestrating a propaganda campaign here where they're trying to go toe-to-toe against the United States on things like TikTok, where they own TikTok. The U.S. Congress, the Supreme Court, and the President have all said they need to divest their ownership of that. And then even what we've seen most recently here, their attempt to get into this artificial intelligence race through a group called DeepSeek, their version of AI. And really, we should note this, DeepSeek is just a way to do a deep intrusion into America's intellectual property. And so we have led in Congress on a couple of bills. My bill is one, sanctioning the Chinese who are doing this. Two, going aggressively after the MSS, and not just defensive countermeasures. We launched a ransomware bill today to use public-private technology to be able to fight back. But then also making sure that we have real safeguards here when it comes to cyber specifically, making sure that we've got the infrastructure that is American-led, not Chinese-bought. And what I mean by that are things like blockchain technology. This is the next generation of what the Internet's going to run on. Data will become the most valuable resource in our lifetime, more so than any hardened rare earth mineral. And we've got to make sure that we're protecting that in order to maintain a competitive advantage, Martha.
So at the inaugural last week, you saw the tech titans, sitting right there on the front row. And I'm fine with that because I'm a capitalist and, I think that's good. The thing I'm most concerned about, obviously, is what you're talking about is data and where these things are made. I was in buying a new iPhone some months ago, and I just happened to be sitting across the table from someone who identified themselves as head of customer service for Apple in this part of the country. So I'm not going to, I didn't ask for their ID. I just assumed they were telling me the truth. And we got into a conversation, and the store was full. And I said, I think that we have established that people will pay $1,000 for a phone. I think that if you made it in America, they'd pay $1,200 and they wouldn't blink an eye. Why can't we bring this kind of manufacturing back to America?
Martha, you're 100% correct here. And, I don't always trust everything coming out of big tech in the U.S., but I absolutely trust it far more than anything coming out of big tech out of the CCP. And here's what I've asked from the beginning, is that we be transparent with this data collection. We ensure a right to privacy for Americans' data, so it's not being used by a commercial sector or by a foreign government or even being exploited by our own government. People need to have control over that. It's their own personal information. And what I'll also highlight here is I'm glad that the tech sector has decided that President Trump is somebody they can and should be doing business with. So having those guys on the stage, to me, was just as good as other presidents who have had just a list of bureaucrats and Hollywood stars up there. I think the ingenuity, the safety, and the future of America's dominance in this area is going to come by partnering up our best tech leaders with a government that is focused on creating, building, and maintaining American dominance, both in the manufacturing of chips, one of the reasons that I was proud to help with the CHIP Act, but also by making sure that stays here for our defense sector, for our allies, as we saw with Israel, the technology that they're able to do, and not getting undermined by our adversaries, which is clearly what China's intending to do. And I'll go back to this new AI coming out of China called DeepSeek. They were able to do it reportedly for a fraction of the cost of things like NVIDIA and ChatGPT here in the U.S. Equally, they were able to destabilize the entire U.S. economy in the course of a 48-hour span. I think NVIDIA had the single largest $500 billion loss ever on the on the stock trade because of a new Chinese technology which sought to undermine U.S. dominance here. And I also get concerned when the Chinese can have that kind of a major economic swing in our own economy at a time and place of their choosing. It gives them a tactical advantage in the strategic competition.
And there's no way for us to know if they're actually telling the truth about them doing it cheaper.
100%.
That's the problem. Right. Maybe they did it cheaper. I don't know. I mean, I've seen reviews
maybe
on
they sold it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen reviews on the product, and it's had relatively good reviews, but you don't know. They don't reveal what it cost them to do it. They just said it was cheaper than what we did it for, and that's the challenge that we have here. And I think that we've got a lot of battles to fight. And I love the fact we're talking about going to Mars. I love the fact we're talking about big things because there's a generation of people, Zach, that are in that kind of 30s. Early 40s range that really believe that the American dream is not for them. And we need to get that kind of spirit back where, and we can't blame it all on social media. We've got to lead better because good leaders are not people that do everything themselves. Good leaders are the people that inspire you to say, I can go out there and do this and be successful.
Martha, I couldn't agree with you more. And you know what? You look at your father and what he did, my grandfather. My father went on to be an engineer and try and get kids interested in math, teaching high school here in Des Moines, Iowa, of all things, because he was part of that, race to the moon generation. We need to make sure that our kids, my daughter's about to go off to Iowa State, a great engineering and teaching school, to say, what is your future going to look like? And it's incumbent on us, those of all, from 30 to 60 right now, to make sure that we're offering an inspiration of what America can be as well as what it should be. We've got a lot of really good things that are produced here in the United States, and our most powerful asset is always going to be our ingenuity, our pioneer spirit, and our willingness to do the hard work. I want to see that for my kids' generation and for grandkids to come. So, yes, Martha, you're absolutely right on that.
Zack Nunn, Congressman Zack Nunn, Republican from Iowa, thank you so much for being with us today. Keep fighting the good fight.
Be safe and God bless. We'll talk to you soon, Martha.
It's where North Georgia comes to talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Joining me right now, though, as we always do at this time, is talk about what's going on under the Gold Dome, is Tony West from Americans for Prosperity, Georgia. If you don't know anything about Americans for Prosperity, you need to know about this group. They are the good guys. They get the big issues done for people related to business and spending and taxes, and I just love everything about them. Tony, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Good morning, Martha. I'm doing well. You're too kind.
Oh, I love AFP. I mean, I have done more things with AFP over the years than almost any other organization because you just stay true to what you believe in, and I just love it. And if you don't want to be involved with a big national organization, there are state organizations all over this country. There's AFP Georgia. We regularly talk to the person that heads up AFP Texas, and there's lots of people out there. So it's a great organization. But let's bring it back home to what's going on under the Gold Dome. And right now, we're kind of anticipating the tort reform bill from Governor Kemp, but want to know what Senator Dolezal is doing and how that fits into what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so at AFP, we've been working for several years now on big regulatory reform, and we're starting to see some movement here in Georgia. Last week, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones announced that he was going to put forward an initiative similar to DOGE to really take on the administrative state here in Georgia, and it appears that Senator Dolezal of Cumming has introduced Senate Bill 28 to do just that. The bill is called the Red Tape Rollback Act of 2025. It does quite a few things, but the two things I wanted to talk with you this morning about, Martha, that it does are a sunrise review for brand new regulations and then a sunset review of existing regulations. What we've been pushing nationally and across many different states at AFP is what we call the REINS Act. It is a sunrise trigger for any new major rules and regulations coming from the executive branch. We want to see the legislature have the ability to block huge negatively impacting rules and regs before they go into implementation. And that's something this bill would do. And, you know, Martha, we're proud of our state's strong economy and the quality business climate that we've built over the years. But we have to realize that may not always be the case, and we have to be proactive and put in place these types of reform and processes to make sure we will continue to be the top place for business. And Senate Bill 28 is a good start at doing just that.
Well, and when you say, I mean, I know it seems obvious, but when you say a sunrise review, does that mean when the rule is passed? Because, for example, I serve on the State Board of Education. And so one of the things that we do is that when the legislature passes a bill, depending on how the bill's worded, there's a responsibility for us as a board to create a rule. And then that rule has to be put in place. Is that what you're talking about, that there's a review of that kind of thing?
That's right, the review of a proposed new rule. That's exactly correct. We have around, it's been a few years since it was calculated, but we have around 20,000 different rules and regs currently on the books across the executive branch in Georgia. We don't know what the dollar amount figure, the regulatory burden that we have on our economy is at. So what we would like to see in this legislation and any legislation that ends up passing this session is actually saying, whether it be existing rules and regs or proposed, let's put a dollar amount. What is the compliance cost for businesses, for individuals, even for local governments to comply with this new rule or reg? And what the REINS Act does, it says if it meets a certain threshold, what Senate Bill 28 says is if it's $1 million regulatory cost over 5 years, legislature's got to put their stamp of approval on that. It's a guardrail to make sure we don't have an out-of-control bureaucracy in the future. Because right now we've seen under Governor Kemp, that's not the case. This is a proactive getting ahead of a potential problem for the future.
But that may not always happen, as you pointed out. Now, red tape rollback, that's a term we've heard before. So this is an expansion of what was done last year, correct?
It's a continuation. It did not pass last year.
Oh, okay, got it.
So
all right.
That's correct. But this is exciting, too. So you have REINS that deals with new rules and regs, but we have plenty on the books right now. And how do we get rid of those? So what Senate Bill 28 does, it sets up a regular review every 4 years. Every single state agency would take a look at every single rule or reg and determine, are they still valid? Are they doing what the legislature thought they would be doing? Is there a less restrictive way of implementing that rule or reg that would have less of a burden on businesses in our state? And hopefully through that process and with more transparency and with more accountability, we will start seeing those rules and regs coming off the books. That's just a process we really don't have right now. And I can't explain how big of an impact this could have on our economy if done right. The combination of the REINS Act for new rules and regs and a red tape rollback for existing rules and regs, along with their continuing lowering our tax rates, that combination of lowering taxes and regulatory reform will keep Georgia on the map for years.
So on the House side, now the red tape rollback is on the Senate side and has to come over to the House. But on the House side, Speaker John Burns announced continued government transparency efforts through the House Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight Committee. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was certainly exciting. To have both chambers talking about this issue really shows that the momentum is there to get something done. I'm not 100% sure if the Speaker's announcement is meant to say they're going to have their own legislation being introduced, or if that committee is more going to be doing research and asking for more data and information from the agencies that maybe they aren't currently receiving, and based on that information may lead to legislation. But either way, there are so many things happening down at the Gold Dome already in the first few weeks for regulatory reform. To be at top of mind for both chambers is huge for us.
So let me ask you a question. You may not know the answer to this, but for a period of time, about 15 years ago, we were doing this zero-based budgeting where a department a year kind of rebuilt their budget. I think we've gotten away from that. Is that right?
So believe it or not, I did some of those zero-based budget analyses when I worked for the Office of Planning and Budget. And they were helpful exercises, but you're exactly right. They didn't always accomplish maybe what the legislature had hoped, and that's my warning to lawmakers when I have these conversations on what regulatory reform could look like. We can't have it be something where the agencies are just going through the motions.
Yes,
there has to be definite, formal procedures that give the legislature some power, or this will be reform in name only. It'll be a real rhino, to make a joke.
Yes,
but
yes.
We've got to be very careful about how we craft this type of legislation, because it's a great opportunity. You have Elon Musk and Donald Trump talking about DOGE at the federal level. This something as kind of wonky as regulatory reform, the interest doesn't come along very often. So this is definitely a moment to get it right. And when you think about stuff like zero-based budgeting, if it's a fad or flashy, if it doesn't really accomplish what you hope, you're going to look back and have some regrets. So with that in mind, I have that in the back of my mind as well.
Yeah, and I think obviously we have a better situation because we do have to balance our budget every year. But it does concern me that the oversight isn't there where it needs to be, and that what we see in a lot of cases is members just getting information about what more a department wants to spend instead of a total look at the budget. I mean, granted, you could look at a total look, but these are part-time legislators, right? I mean, they have minimum amount of staff. It's difficult for them to do all the homework that they need to do. And that's why it's really important to have agencies and groups like AFP and other groups that can do the homework. I know people like to, and you probably don't like to call yourself a lobbyist, but people don't like the term lobbyist. But what I learned in working in the Senate and then working for Governor Kemp is there's a lot of great things that lobbyists do and help filling in the gaps on information. You just have to be aware of what their biases are.
I couldn't put it any better myself, and I will say the way we know every line item of the Georgia budget, that's where we need to get with our regulatory code. We know what they all are. We have no idea what they cost our economy and our businesses. And Senate Bill 28 or any other piece of legislation introduced this session, that's where we need to get, where we have a dollar amount and say this regulation is attempting to solve this problem, but it's costing this much. And then the legislature can say, is that what we want? And agencies and the governor can say, is that really what we want?
Well, and I got to tell you, I have been on the school board now, but this is my 5th year, and I have taken some votes for some level of spending that boggles the mind, especially during COVID when they were just throwing money, at things. And I noticed that I always ask that question. How do we know what this costs? How do we know what is it costing us to get this money? What is it costing us to have to create regulation around this? And we've got to have people at every level asking those questions. And, I love what I'm seeing up in the federal government right now where Donald Trump is doing things no one has ever seen before. I don't know how many of those things are going to actually shake out as far as, pausing spending and all of the different things he's doing. But I love the fact that he is not accepting we've always done it this way. And that's what we have to do on the state government side, too. Even though we run a great ship and we don't overspend and we got plenty of extra money, we still have to work hard on being sure we are as efficient as possible, because the goal should be to give as much money back to the taxpayer, or, hey, maybe not take it in the first place. That's what the goal should be.
That's right. And I know this is a complicated issue, and it may be hard to explain in just a few minutes on the radio. So we have the website, GeorgiaReigns.com.
Great.
GeorgiaReigns.com. A really cool video, a short video that people can watch to better explain how this Reigns process can work, and also an opportunity to do a couple clicks and contact your lawmakers to support regulatory reform this year.
Tony West, Americans for Prosperity, Georgia. And next week, we're going to take a deep dive into education, because that's where you spend most of your money, Georgia taxpayers. So we're going to talk about that next week. Tony West, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks, Martha. Have a good day.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
I want to talk to Norma Hernandez, who is the chair of the Northeast Georgia Latino Chamber of Commerce. And Norma, I always appreciate you being available. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Miss Martha. It's always great being here.
So, how is it in your business community today, and how are you handling messaging out to the community about what's going on today in America?
We have been in contact with law enforcement, of course, and we also have been in contact with the clerical, the pastors, churches, different churches as well, and community leaders to let people know that we are okay, that we are in a safe community. It's very scary what's going on out there, but the media and the Facebook and all that social media, people are being mean and people are posting things that they don't know. There is a lot of talking that immigration is on Atlanta Highway. There's a lot of talking it's on Brunsbridge Road. And I wish, and I keep on telling people, please quit doing that. It's just causing us trouble. It's just causing people to not feel safe. And I have been in touch again with law enforcement, and I am being assured that we are safe and we are in a safe community.
And what you mean safe is that they're going to enforce the law and they're going to arrest people who are criminals, but people who are not criminals are not going to be arrested.
100%. And that's the way it has been so far for many, many, many years. And we are so proud of our community because, I guess people do break the law, but I believe that we have a very hardworking, good community, and I'm very proud to be here. Yeah.
Does it bother you that you're hearing, because every newscast, even ones on stations I like, are using the term mass deportation and immigration raids, and I just haven't seen the evidence of that.
Yes, it bothers me a lot, and I keep on reposting postings that are positive, that are saying, this is not what's happening, because you did nail it when you said at the beginning that we are using, or people and the media are using the wrong words, mass deportation. That's horrible. That is not happening in our town, in anywhere either. And also raid people. we are not having raids. They are enforcing the law the same way that it has been being enforced for years. So there's nothing new in town. There's nothing new in Gainesville. I want the community to feel safe and to go out and do their things. Please don't break the law, because we don't supposed to. And if you do it, you will get in trouble the same way as you will get in trouble if this was not happening. So
there was a little protest on Sunday. I was driving to the hospital to visit my father-in-law, and I saw it. I wasn't sure what their message was. I saw a bunch of signs. There was maybe 30 people there. So what do you know about that?
I did contact law enforcement when that was sent to me, because I have a lot of communication with a lot of people in the community, and that was sent to me actually. And I did talk to law enforcement, and they had no idea that was happening. But later on, I was calling, and I was told that they did file for a permit really quick, and that happened. That is very confusing. It's very confusing to me, and I'm really wish that stopped, because that is confusing the community. There's another one coming up tomorrow as well. And they call it a protest, but I really don't understand what are they protesting. They can't be protesting to tell law enforcement that if something happened, they will do something or whatever. Are they protesting against immigration laws or something? But I don't think their message is clear, and it is making a confusion.
There were a lot of different messages. One sign I saw was, "What about the Dreamers?" And, it's funny that there is one group, or many groups, I shouldn't say one group. There's a group of people that I think most people have a lot of sympathy for. I don't care who you are, black, white, Latino, it doesn't matter. And it's these, what's so-called dreamers, where they've come to the United States. They were brought with their parents as children. They've been to the United States. Now, I disagreed with Barack Obama saying, up to 18 years old is a child. I think of it more as, like if you're like 2 to 10 or 11, you don't have any control over where your parents take you. But what was so crazy about that is when Donald Trump first got into office, he went to Nancy Pelosi and he said, "I will not only give you legal status for the 700,000 dreamers, I will make their parents legal also, and their siblings of their immediate family," which would be 2.2 million at that time.
That's right.
"All I want in exchange is $5 billion for the wall." Any normal person would have thought that was a great deal. But she turned it down. And so that problem didn't get fixed back in 2017 when it could have been fixed.
That's right.
And that bothers me a lot, because there have been great opportunities. And I think there are too many forces out there that really just don't want to solve these problems. And I think that's what's changing, because Donald Trump's come in there. And look, I've had my issues with Donald Trump over the years. But I think he's going in there and trying to do what he's promised to do.
I think so, too. There have been really great things towards our Latino community, or I should say the international or people from other countries during his administration, and, to the business community is something positive. And during his first administration as well, we did get to legalize he opens up this project where people can require workers to come from other countries, because it's hard to say, but a lot of people here in America don't want to work. And I don't know why. It's such a great country to work and make your dreams come true. But, if companies have to go to other countries to get workers, that's pretty sad. And that has happened before. So legalizing our community is the way to go. And, when a new project is coming, you have to clear up some stuff. And if you have a lot of people that is breaking the law with felonies that they already have been proven that they have done wrong, they need to be removed. And I hate to say it, if they are Latinos, if they are whatever race, different races they are, if they are not good for us, we need to get them out.
So tell us your story, Norma. When did you come to the United States? I know you're very accomplished in the work that you do. Tell us a little bit about you.
That's a long story. I don't think you have enough time for me. I came to Gainesville, and I came straight from Honduras to Gainesville with my family a little over 30 years ago. So, and of course, I came with my family. That was the legal way and the right way to do it, because it's very dangerous to cross the border and stuff. Not that I would have done it, but I was blessed to come that way. So I came to the little community of Gainesville, and there were very few Latinos, probably 20 Latinos in town. There was nobody here. So I came with my family, and I just started working, and I got married, and I started working for one of the poultry plants, actually. And then I started working for a drugstore. When I got pregnant, I started working for a drugstore. And after that, the police department knew about me, so they hired me. And I started working with the Gainesville Police Department for 7.5 years. Then I was asked by the district attorney to move to work for the district attorney.
Were you doing translation and things like that, or
with the municipal court? I was at first I started as a dispatcher.
Okay,
because I already knew a little bit of English, some English, a lot of English maybe, but I was fluent in English. I have to keep on going and learning more. But I work as a dispatcher, and then I moved to the municipal court. So I was the clerk of the municipal court.
You're right. We've only got about 30 seconds
I
left.
know. It's way
you
too
went
long.
on to school, then you're an accountant now, right? Or
I was an accountant in my
Yes.
country. So
Yes.
that was my background from
okay.
Honduras. I came here and I did that. Then once I moved to the district attorney's office, I started opening my own business. So I went and got my
CPA?
My CPA here in my accounting degree here in Gainesville. So I started working. So now I had 3 different businesses that I'm very proud of, and my main thing and that I do is, of course, running my businesses. But most of the times I spend a lot of time in the community because we have to give back.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.